Shabbat Shalom. Shakach. Thank you, Mark. Parashat Mishpatim that we read today is, as Rabbi Lerner shared with us earlier, it's all about how to set up a just society in which every member has equal rights and equal access to justice. We are commanded to not take advantage of other people's poverty or other disadvantages. And most importantly, we are told, do not wrong or oppress a foreigner, for you were foreigners in the land of Egypt. And Rabbi Lerner spoke so beautifully this morning about how this parsha is really about setting up a society based on empathy. What does it mean to remember that we were foreigners in Egypt? It means that we should empathize with people in our society, even people who have very different experiences from our own. And what does it mean to do that? How do we reach empathy? Well, we have to learn about each other. We have to get to know each other. And at Temple Emunah, we are blessed to have a strong refugee action committee, which has taken on this mitzvah in earnest. Based on the recognition that each person is created b'tselem Elohim, in the image of God, and motivated by our teachings, including do not stand idly by, the Temple Emunah Refugee Action came together to mobilize our efforts to support refugees and immigrants. And this wonderful group works to identify organizations with expertise in working with refugees and immigrants, and to find ways for Temple Emunah to partner with these organizations. They also aim to inform Temple Emunah members about current developments and the ways that we as individuals and collectively can provide help and support. And the chairs of that effort are Barbara Posnick and Sylvia Perlman. In addition, we have, yes, thank you. And in addition, we have the Rapid Response Team organized by Susan Cook. And I'm going to say a lot less about that right now because we're about to learn all about those efforts. So I'll just say that they work with a wonderful organization called Accentria to support people who are living in Waltham who require assistance as they adjust to living in this country. And Susan will speak a little bit more about their work. And our speaker today is from Accentria, Winnie Spillers. And for almost 20 years, Winnie has been working with immigrant and refugee communities in a number of ways in the nonprofit sector. She spent 5 years as an ESL, that's English as a second language, and citizenship instructor, and an administrative assistant at the Socioeconomic Development Center for Southeast Asians. She spent 2 years as the executive director of the Rhode Island Association of Chinese Americans, and the past 12 years as the administrative assistant for Accentria's Unaccompanied Refugee Minors program. And that's what we'll be hearing about most today. In addition to her work, she has sponsored a sibling group of Sierra Leonean refugees, and she has a son from a Guatemalan mother who 12 years ago walked over the border and into her life. In her free time, she enjoys traveling, reading, and fiber arts. So I'm going to first invite Susan Cook, who will share a few words, and then she will introduce Winnie. Thank you, Susan. So just unmute there, and we can hear from you. Okay.
It's such a special morning for me to introduce the Emunah Rapid Response Team, if those of you don't know about, but especially to precede the talk of my partner at Accentria, Winnie Spillers. Rapid Response Team is a fast-acting response to immediate needs of unaccompanied minors, that is, children that come over without an adult supervision. They're in care from a few months old to age 22, and Accentria puts all its resources into supporting their acclimation into the United States. They're fostered with families in the region, and those families have limited funds in order to support them. So the Rapid Response Team is at the ready to provide funding and donations for items that can't be provided for within the stipend for the foster families. And we've been able to help so many children, so many young adults starting out on their own. This is a really personal effort on behalf of our team members to reach out to specific children with specific needs. And every time we do, we say to ourselves, we did something good today. So I'm happy to send this Zoom over to Winnie to tell you more about it.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you so much, everybody, for having me today. I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to talk about the work that Essentia does, and mostly excited to talk about the partnership that we've had with Temple Imuna for the past couple of years. It's been a blessing for us. It's been powerful to have people advocate on behalf of our kids and to support them. So thank you so much for that. And I want to talk a little bit more about what that has looked like for us a little bit later. But I want to talk about the agency a little bit. I don't know how familiar you are with Essentia. It was formerly Lutheran Social Services and has been in existence for over 150 years. Started as a foster care agency serving refugee children so many years ago. And the name was changed to Essentia about 4 years ago. And we have offices and programs in 5 states. We're located in not just Massachusetts, but Connecticut, Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. We have an abundance of services that really provide a continuum of care and overlap in a lot of our programs. So we have the Services for New Americans program for incoming refugees. We have services for disabilities. We have a language bank that provides interpretation and translation services that our clients can also access. We have adoption, we have children and families programs that include not just the URM and the DCS program that I work for, but we also have 2 teen living programs, teen mom programs in Brockton and Worcester. And we have foster care in New Hampshire. We have again, adoption, we still do. We have a legal team that services most of our clients who migrate over the borders. We have Good News Garage in Vermont and New Hampshire that provides, they get donations of cars and provides those to people who are in need of transportation. And we have a good number of in-home health care where our workers will go into the homes of the elderly, the disabled, help them with their day-to-day needs. And we have some also nursing facilities in several of the states. So those are some of the programs that we have. And within the Client Center in Worcester, Mass, which we recently, when the name changed, we didn't buy it. We rented this facility on Shattuck Street. And the idea was that all of our programs, which were formerly housed independently, came together to be in the same building. So when we first opened, it was quite something to come into the office and walk into the lobby, and there would be 50 people in there with various their saris on and their Bhutanese caps and their hijabs and speaking all different kind of languages and all different colors. And it was really just so quite something to see and experience. And I used to love walking through the lobby so I could meet and greet. But since the pandemic and since our reduction in funding, our program, our doors are actually locked right now. You cannot come into the office without an appointment, and there's only 5 people allowed on each floor. So we've had a lot of change, unfortunate change over the last few years. Over the changes with the administration, our Services for New Americans program, which in the past used to resettle 150 families a month, went to resettling less than that over the course of a year. Our program we received 3 overseas refugees last year, compared to 2015, where we had 23 come in. We've only had 25 in the last 4 years. So pretty significant changes for us, for our program, for Services for New Americans. We really hope to see that change with this current administration. And there has been already within the executive orders for President Biden, he's already working on changing many of those policies, and the 15,000 cap for refugees coming in that was set by the Trump administration. Joe Biden is saying he will increase that to 62,000 for this fiscal year and 125,000 for 2022, which I'm hopeful that happens, and excited. I think we all are, to have those types of positive changes, and so many other policy changes. What happened at the border over the last several years in terms of children being separated from their parents, from their families. The Biden administration has made a commitment to reunite those families, it's a matter of finding the parents, and that they would be united here in the United States. The Daca program, which I'm sure you know, has been reinstated. A lot of hopeful changes coming for all of us, I hope. But I do want to talk specifically, of course, I know more about my program than other programs offered by Essentia, but I'm really happy to talk about the Unaccompanied Refugee Minors program, which has a second component under its umbrella, which is the children Division of Children's Services, which are the migrant children who walk across the border, typically the southern border. And I'm sure that everybody here has heard stories about those children and the numbers, just the sheer volume of kids who are making that trip. Like some years it's been 25,000, and in 2014-15, they say 102,000 minors crossed the border. Just to put it in perspective, there's 10 programs nationwide that take these children in terms of foster care and putting them in foster care and supporting them. And when you look at those numbers of thousands and thousands of children, Massachusetts, Essentia has the second largest program for migrant children in the country. And our cap is 18 children. And we currently have 10 placed in our program. The vetting process has increased the time frame in terms of those children crossing the border and accessing legal support, which is very difficult. They have to do it within 21 days. They have to get a lawyer. And of course, that's next to impossible. And at that point, they are deported to enter our program as we call them DUCs, because it used to be the Division of Unaccompanied Children, and now they've changed their name, but we have stuck with that DUCs terminology to identify our children who are our migrant children who come across the border undocumented. As I said, we currently have 10 children in our program, and these children are required to, they come from the shelter. They have to enter the country before their 18th birthday in order to get any kind of legal relief. So our program appoints a pro bono lawyer, usually a lawyer, as I said, that works right in the client center and is able to see them on a regular basis and support their case. They have 3 different avenues of acquiring legal relief. Special immigrant juvenile, which is an SIJ status, which many of our kids get. It proves abuse, neglect, and abandonment in their home country. We have trafficking victims that we serve, approximately 40 in our program currently, and 40 SIJ kids, juvenile status. And then the other is, of course, asylum, which is very hard to prove, very lengthy legal battle, and not one that's quite as successful to prove as the SIJ. So the SIJ, the interesting thing about it is that it is through our lens. So when you're talking about that abuse, neglect, and abandonment, a lot of our kids who come over the border, they come from extreme poverty, and it's a way of life that they work when they're quite young. Maybe they're 5 or 6, and they're out farming and in the fields. And as was the case with my son Diego, he was 10 when he left his home and his village and went to Guatemala City to work independently, which he did until he left the country at 15. But he was on his own and supporting himself, as well as giving what extra money, which is very little, to his family. So a lot of the kids leave for economic reasons when they cross the border, and it's so hard to wrap your head around that experience of coming here without a parent, without a guardian, without a support. And they're under tremendous pressure from their families, actually, to continue that economic support, to continue sending money home. So from where we sit at Essentia and in our office, knowing the benefits of being in our program, that you have legal representation, that you have a place to live, and you have food, and you have the stability that's offered by the program. But many of the kids don't want to be in the program because they, as I said, they have a lot of pressure to make money. And of course, legally, they don't have work authorization. They're deportable to work under the table if found. But it presents a real problem for them. And not a lot, but a fair number of our kids do run away. They're not interested in education. It isn't really presented as being valuable in their home country. I don't think that it's just not the same. Education is just not perceived in the same way as it is here. So trying to adjust that mindset to recognizing that if you're going to stay in this country, how important just getting that high school diploma is, never mind going on to college. But so for many of these kids, they don't have an education, as it was the case with Diego when he came to this country. He had a 4th grade education. Many of the kids have interrupted school. Even our refugee kids have the same situation. Maybe they're illiterate in their own language. All kind of various barriers and obstacles when they come. They're teenagers who have not been to school in many instances. And then they're put in a situation where our kids typically, on average, don't graduate from high school until they're 20. Some of them are 21. The schools don't want them necessarily. They don't fit into the system because they are older, because they're not up to speed in terms of the reading, the math, the whole thing. It's really hard for school systems to absorb these kids and to give them really the services that they need. So a lot of our kids end up going the GED route, or just not going at all in many cases. All of the kids in our program pretty much suffer from PTSD. A lot of times they have significant trauma. All of them, just not even in terms of being separated from their families or their journeys, but things that have happened to them in their travels, things that have happened to them that made them leave their homes. So they leave for a variety of reasons. Obviously our African clients, war, famine, poverty, persecution are very common reasons why the kids leave and walk to other countries and seek refugee status. And of course, our migrant children, it's the same. They're fleeing gang violence, they're fleeing poverty, some of them are street children. It's just a lot of different reasons why the kids come over. So once they get here and they do become part of our program, we have a lot of benefits. As I said, we place them in the foster care home. Sometimes they live in a group home. A lot of times our kids are, when they're in the refugee camps, they're in groups. So they have a leader of their circle. Maybe 10 boys live in not a facility, but a home or a room or an apartment together, and they have a house mother, some of them, like our Eritrean kids, and they're comfortable with that situation, and they're independent. So a lot of the kids who come, they don't necessarily want to be in foster care either, because they've been their own boss for years. They've lived independently since they were young kids, sometimes 9, 10, 11 years old, and they'll be in the refugee camps for years and years before they finally come here. And so I'm sorry.
I want to thank you. These stories are just so moving, and I think I can see how everyone is riveted. We have to wrap up for the moment, sure, but we're going to have more opportunity to hear from you in just a moment. So I know I'm riveted with these stories, and I hope that everyone else will stay. We're just going to conclude our service in a moment with Adon Olam and Kiddush, and then we'll continue. We'll hear more from Winnie, and we'll have an opportunity for a Q&A for folks who want to hear more about the work that Essentia is doing to help these individuals who come from such challenging circumstances, and hear about the work, the ways that people from Temple Emunah can become involved. So thank you so much, Winnie.
Thank you.
I'm gonna turn it over to the Laflemme family, who I believe is leading us in Adon Olam on page 211. Thank you.
Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'Terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, Li'et Nasa, Behepso Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, V'Acharit Yivlot HaKol, Levado Yimloch Nora Adon Olam, V'Hu Haya, V'Hu Hoveh, Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'Terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, Li'et Nasa, Behepso Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, V'Hu Echad, V'Ein Sheni, L'Hamshila L'Chabira Adon Olam, B'li Reishi, B'li Tachli, V'lo Ha'oz V'Hamisra Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'Terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, Li'et Nasa, Behepso Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, V'Hu Eli, V'Chai Goali, V'Zor Havli B'Yetzara Adon Olam, V'Hu Nisi, Umanosli, Lenat Kasi B'Yom Nikra Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'Terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, Li'et Nasa, Behepso Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, Rado of King Rufi, V'Yedishan V'Yaira Adon Olam, V'Imruchi, V'Yati, Adonai Li V'Lo Ira Adon Olam.
We'll turn to
Shabbat Shalom.
Shamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורות ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש. על כן ברך אדוני את יום השבת ויקדשהו. סברי.
Chaim.
ברוך אתה אדוני למלך העולם בורא פרי הגפן.
Amen.
ברוך אתה אדוני למלך העולם אשר קידשנו מצוותיו וציוונו על נטילת ידיים.
Amen.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם המוציא לחם מן הארץ.
Amen. Shabbat Shalom.
I'll join the 6th and 7th graders in 2552.
All right, and I'll invite everyone to stick around and to hear more from Winnie. And so I'm going to invite Winnie back and just note that I want to hear more about what Accentria does to help combat the circumstances you were describing, and about how we can be involved. So let's get Winnie back unmuted.
Okay, I'm muted.
Winnie, do we have you here?
Yes,
Okay, great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. I don't want to go past a time that's convenient for everybody, so feel free to just let me know if I'm talking too much. Okay.
Now we've got time, so go ahead.
Okay. So I'm not sure where I left off, but what Accentria does for our children is that foster care piece, or making sure that they have a placement that best suits them. So sometimes that is a group home, sometimes it's with a family. And then we have some situations where the kids, after many years, usually they live independently. Sometimes they go to college, they live in a semi-independent living situation. Sometimes a lot of them come together, like they identify their friends and who are in the program, and they can share an apartment together and have a little bit of support from a subcontracted placement agency, as well as us. The kids get a caseworker that they work with, case management. They have mental health and physical, like healthcare, mass health. They go to school. It's a requirement to be in the program. And they get that support that all around that all kids need. And some of them thrive and some of them not so much. It really depends on the child and what types of circumstances they're in. We had a child take his life last month. It's really always you never know what's going on for children. I think that the COVID pandemic has really had an impact on us all, of course, but certainly more so, and even more so on children who are struggling and who don't have those support systems in place that many of us are fortunate to have. That family network, that those friends that have been our friends for a lifetime and who always have our backs. So that's always something that's a struggle for our kids. On the other side of that, we have some they're all amazing. All of our kids are amazing. I miss so much being at the office and having that daily interaction with them. They're very inspiring, and as a rule, they're very joyful and animated and interesting, and just so much fun to check in with and see what's happening in their lives. One of our girls, she's Nigerian, her name is Morfat, and Morfat had the good fortune to have somebody really advocate for her when she came into our program as a migrant child from Nigeria. And her caseworker at that time did a lot of groundwork in getting Morfat a full paid scholarship to Clark University. And she entered Clark when she was 17 years old, and currently is doing her master's at Georgetown University. She's remarkable, and as so many of our kids are. We've had kids go to Holy Cross and BU and UMass on big scholarships, and we had a boy who went to med school. It's really just quite something when I think about my own childhood and how I had two parents that supported me and told me to do my homework and do this and do that. And these kids don't have that, and they get themselves up. So many of them who don't thrive in foster care and who go that independent living route, and they get themselves up and they get themselves to school and they study because they want to and because it's important to them, and it's really so phenomenal what they do. We had a boy from Honduras. His name was Jorge, and he came to this country. He was 16 years old. He had never been to school. It was overwhelming for him. He was so ashamed and embarrassed, and it was so hard for him to even try to speak English. It was just so painful to watch him muddle through. And today he's a citizen, and he eventually, as you have to survive here, he learned the language, and he got his GED, and he's my hero. It's just so powerful what these kids do with themselves as their own motivators. My son Diego, he had me, I like to say, after 12 years, my 2-year commitment came to an end. He actually just moved out last month. He bought a house, and he has a bachelor's degree, and he's amazing. He just perseveres, and he sets goals, and he achieves them. And I think he's not the exception when it comes to these kids. He's really part of a bigger group of young people who really are just so deserving and work so hard for everything that they achieve for themselves, for their families, and their community. They're part of their community, and they're just really inspirational young people to be around.
Beautiful. I think Susan was raising her hand. Susan Cook, did you have something you wanted to add or ask?
Winnie, can you talk a little bit about the our rapid response team and their involvement with the program?
I'm so happy to do that. Yes, thank you so much. So years ago, Kate Hayfitz from Temple Imuna had come to our office and had said that Temple Imuna was very interested in supporting our work and supporting our kids and creating something that would, a program that could meet their needs, or if they had a need arise that maybe your community could help support them. And it was at least, I think, a year later that Susan had called me and said, we're not quite ready, but we're getting there and we're working on it. And Susan, you kept in touch with me and kept telling me, updating me about the progress that you were making. And eventually the rapid response team was created and has been so powerful in terms of what it's done for the young people in our care, for the kids who are living independently. You've been so supportive. We've over 35 kids. Some of them repeats. Kids who have had children who are parenting, young people who are parenting, young people who, many of our kids don't have that work authorization. They have jobs that are low paying and they struggle, and the rapid response team has really come forward for them in terms of providing things that they need to start out on their own, things that like bus tickets and beds and toddler beds and cribs and strollers and a bike. We have our youngest URM right now is 6 years old, and she got a bike this summer. It was really
Irma.
Yeah, so great. She is the cutest. So cute. Yeah, I'm afraid during all this pandemic, she's not going to remember who I am, and I'm missing her grow up. Yeah, bikes and car seats. And my favorite thing, because we have summer programming also, and you've been tremendous during the summer programming for the little weaving looms that I asked for the reference materials, for poetry books, for journals, for all of those things, the quilting, all the enrichment activities. You make it possible. You make it possible for us to do those things and to bring that to the kids. And those activities are so critical to their well-being, to their social skills, to their just being able to present them with the opportunity to explore different things, to find out if they like it and are they good at it, and to bring them joy, and it lets them spend really great time together where they're safe, they're taken care of, and it's a social growing setting. It's really it's amazing. It's amazing. And
wonderful. I just want to note, Susan, for folks who want to be part of the rapid response team, what should they do? How do they join?
Okay, this is really simple. Just email amunarapidresponse@gmail.com. I'll get you on the list. And the next time Winnie sends me a request, I send it out to the entire team. And I give everybody a few days to see if they can help. And once we have enough to either cover the cost or we have an actual donation, then I send instructions on how to make it happen. And I can tell you from the people that have already participated, it's been one of the most meaningful ways they have acted on their need for public service, because it's very individual. Like Winnie referenced Irma, who lived in a foster home, and she needed a little bicycle so she could play outside, and we managed to get her a bicycle. And the group that sponsored it can sit back at night and say, we got this little Irma a bicycle. I mean, it's such a concrete and personal way to help people. And I hope more of you will join up. You might only, help fill a request once a year. We get requests on a regular basis. So it's not a full-time commitment, but whenever something spikes, spikes your heart and you want to help, just answer my email, amunarapidresponse@gmail.com.
Wonderful. And, Rabbi Lerner spoke earlier about how some people have many of us have regular annual giving that we do. And in addition, there are specific requests that come up. And so this is one way to respond to specific acute needs in the moment. I'd love to give the opportunity for anyone here to ask questions. So I see, great, Barbara Pallant.
Yeah, Winnie, assuming that the Biden administration's policies governing immigration are successful and the borders are open again, what is your capacity to handle increasing numbers, and what is your source of funding? It used to be, I know, the Lutheran Resettlement Services, so a lot of it came from the Lutheran community and churches, but what would be your main government? Would it be government funding? Would it be, again, Lutheran funding? Would it be the general public? How do you anticipate handling increased loads?
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Barbara. It's so nice to see you. And thank you for all your support.
Thank you for your beautiful thank you letters. You write the most exquisite thank you letters of anybody. And you spend an enormous amount of time doing it, I'm sure.
It's really my pleasure, and thank you. Thank you. So to answer your question, we are funded 100% by the federal government.
Oh.
Our program is 100% funded by the federal government. It filters down though through the state. The state does administer that money. So even though it's coming from the feds, it is being governed or administered through the state.
Mhm.
The budget amount and the amount for the kids who come over the border, as I said, our cap is right now, it's 18 kids. That's the most migrant children that we can have in our program. Our refugee program, that URM piece, the Unaccompanied Refugee Minors program, we have a census right now of 160. That's how much we're budgeted for. But we don't have that many kids in our program right now. We have 138 currently. In the past, we have had, at one point we served over 210 kids in a year, but now our numbers are down where they were in 2012. So as that cap and the amount of refugees who come through changes, our budget changes. It fluctuates year to year, from fiscal year to fiscal year, right? Because of whatever policies are going on in our government and how many of our refugees we can have come through. But our money has always come from that. The Lutheran piece of it is that there are Lutheran Refugee and Immigration Services is our umbrella, and it's where we get our kids from. So really, Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Services is still serving as our network to refugee camps. Okay, so they're saying, we have these children, and they're sending it out across the country to see which organization, which resettlement organization can take these kids. And that determines, it really, you have to have a place to put the kids first. So depending on what that looks like for people, it's a very competitive process in a lot of ways. You have to have, based on some of the kids have intense medical needs. Can we fulfill those? Do we have a home that's appropriate? So many questions, and all the pieces have to kind of fit together right at that time, you know? But budget wise, I hope I answered the question that we do get our money from the feds, and really the Lutheran, it's why they changed our name to Essentia, because people were under the impression that we only served Lutherans, which is not the case, or that our funding came solely from the Lutheran Church. Yeah.
Thank you.
So they want to expand those opportunities to seek other funding sources.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Sylvia, you had a question.
Yeah, first, I really wanted to thank Susan for running this program, because she does such a really lovely job. And I wanted to say hello to Winnie, whom I'm very glad to meet this way. And I wondered, Winnie, whether you could, if the kids were willing, whether you could ever send photos of the kid, you know, the little girl riding her bicycle, the kids using whatever we've been able to help get for them.
Yeah, I was told that a picture did go out of Irma riding her bike, so I'm disappointed to hear that that did not happen. I would not be surprised that that did not happen, because that's how we roll sometimes. But I was told that it was going to go out, and I will revisit that and see if I can get that. As a rule, there is a confidentiality piece to like the quilting pictures that I showed. The migrant children are not allowed to have their faces shown. And the refugee children do have to give permission And I will certainly make it a priority to try to do that, because I would love for you to see their faces. They're very beautiful. And
We did, Winnie, we did receive the pictures from the quilting class that we supported.
right, that's
Yeah.
because I did the quilting class.
Oh,
That's because, yes, I had access to those myself because I was there. But the
I
other
think
thing,
we also got a picture of one of the little toddler cribs
Mhm.
that we
okay,
supported.
yeah,
But you know, it's hard to get the faces in because of the fire.
right, right. Yeah, we have to have permission to share those.
Well, thank you for trying.
Yeah. And Sylvia, thank you. Thank you so much for all of your support and goodness. Really appreciate it.
I love getting your thank you notes. They're so beautiful. They're so both the penmanship is exquisite and the content is beautiful. So thank you.
Let's take a few more questions. Who else had some questions to ask? Yeah, Barbara Neustadt.
So I don't really have a question, Winnie. I want to first of all thank you for coming today, but also thank you for connecting with Susan and with Sylvia and with all of us so that there's something we can do. It's sometimes hard to figure out what to do other than to write a check and it goes somewhere and
Right.
you don't really know exactly what it's going for. And I feel like the times that I've been fortunate enough to be chosen, because there's so many of us who answer, Susan, I think, you know, we don't get picked each time, but the times I've been able to contribute, and it is wonderful that so many of us want to do this, to know exactly what the money is being used for. I can create sort of a fantasy image in my head of the baby in the crib, the 6-year-old on her bike, whatever it is. And I have to say that one of the things that makes it so very special, as everyone else has said, are your thank you notes. They feel very personal. You give a little more detail, and the compassion and kindness in your notes. If only the whole world could be like this, we would all be walking around with smiles all the time. Thank you, thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you. And please know that always that the donations that you make always go to the children. Always, 100%. Whatever we ask for, that's what we purchase. That's what we do with the money. I promise you that. And as I said, I know these kids. I know how grateful they are. I know what it means to them to be supported by community. It's more than just the donation. It's more than that item. It's about people stepping up for them on their behalf and welcoming them, because it is not a welcoming always situation for them. That's the reality, is that is just not their reality so many times. So I think Temple Emuna's support is a lifeline for them. It's somebody saying, we care about you. And what can you do? It doesn't get better than that, truly. So thank you.
Barbara Posnick.
Winnie, I really want to thank you for being with us today and for sharing so personally, and also for giving us more of a sense of the struggles that the kids go through when they are first here and when they are trying to become acclimated and live in this country after all they've been through, and also some of the successes. But I think sometimes when we have speakers, we hear more about the successes and not as much about the struggles. And it was really important for us to have a fuller sense of what a challenge it is being here and the support that it takes to, and the just the amazingness that it takes to overcome that and, live within this country, and for some of them to, medical school, I mean, college, it's just amazing.
It is amazing.
Also, I just, as you've heard, Susan does an amazing job coordinating our program. And there are times that we have more interest in donating than we need for a particular project. So please don't be afraid to ask more of us. I don't want to overwhelm Susan, but I think we really do have the capacity to do even more. And if there are other ways that we could be helpful, let's talk about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. It's such a really a privilege to meet so many people. I feel like you're my friends because I get excited every time I get a.
I think we have another question from Leon.
I just wondered whether, I don't know enough about the program, although whatever. Is there a way for our members to be connected to some of the kids as like big brothers or big sisters, whether it be in connection with a donation of money or a donation of some article, something like that? So there's something sort of a personal connection with them so they know that this individual cares about you.
We have, as part of our program, we have community connections. So if you wanted to be a community connection, that would be amazing. And you would talk to our community connections person. Her name is Colleen Schroth. I can put her information together, but she matches kids with people who just want to spend time to share something maybe that you like to do, that you would like to share with a child. Like we have some community connections who are guitar players or just different, where there might be a similar interest. We absolutely have that. One of the main things that we work on is establishing lifelong connections for our kids. And it's not easy to have that happen. So we want the goal when kids emancipate from our program at 22 or 23 years old is to know that they have adults in their lives who will support them, that they can go to, that they have a connection with. So absolutely always looking for that relationship piece, if that's something you're interested in.
Wonderful, thank you. I think we have another question from Barbara Pallant. Barbara, you gotta unmute.
I won't, I promise. I have 20 questions, but I'll only take up one more question time. And that is, do you anticipate as an organization, Accentria, with the kids that are now being held in detention, and there are hundreds of them, and we know factually that many of them are not going to be reunited with parents because there are no DNA tests being done on the other end in Guatemala, Honduras, wherever these parents came from. Right. So we can test the kids for DNA, but we can't do the insert on the parent, which means a lot of children are going to be needing the kinds of services Accentria provides. Can you pre-plan? Have you had any word from the government that your kind of agency will be the recipients of some of these children?
We get those children regularly.
Oh, you do?
Yes. Yeah, we have some of those children in our care currently. And as I said, even though we have 10 right now, there is talk of our census going up to 21. I haven't heard any updates as to when that will be, but I believe that the federal government is making plans to have our programs increase their census. So, but I don't anticipate that it would go beyond that 21, which is such a tiny, tiny number. Mm-hmm.
I know Leon, had a follow-up question, and then we'll go to Leora after that. Yeah, Leon.
Well, I have a question. Can you describe define the difference between migrant children and refugee children?
Absolutely. The migrant children, the primary difference is that migrant children have no legal status. They're undocumented. The refugee children are vetted in the refugee camp by the UN High Commission of Refugees and are identified as refugees. When they come here on the very day that they arrive, they are approved to be a legal permanent resident. Migrant children have to undergo a tremendous legal process to obtain green card status.
Thank you for clarifying. Thank you, Joelle, for asking the question. Leora.
I really appreciated you talking the hard talk, the difficult talk of failures, meaning not your failure, but a failure of a child to be able to acclimate and assimilate enough of what's going on around him or her. Could you talk just very, very briefly about how you try to track kids who seem to be on their way to running away or dropping out, or I mean, I'm sure you have mental health people involved, but what's the system by which Essentia finds out, and then what do you do about kids who are really at risk for ending up back on the streets again, even without the language even, but.
Mm-hmm. That is a really difficult question that I cannot, these kids are savvy. If they don't want to stay, they're not going to stay. And certainly the kids, when they come from the shelters, they might be identified as a run risk. And that usually means that they have family members here in the United States. So, or they have some kind of connection to somebody. It is usually family. And those are the kids that run. Like they have a network, they have a resource somewhere. And a lot of times, like actually one of the kids who came to the quilting class, I love this kid. He was 14 years old. He actually loved fabric. It was really quite something, but he ran shortly after that, 14. And it's heartbreaking. It's gut wrenching, like to think about, because we never know, as a rule, we never know what happens to them. We don't know. Somebody comes and picks them up typically in the night. That's the consensus anyway, that there's some collaboration there with somebody that they know. And they're desperate. They're desperate to work. They have a lot of pressure from home to send money. And it doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. And the school thing isn't important enough to them. It doesn't really have a draw. None of it does. The foster care, they don't come here to live with a family. They don't come here to get an education. They come here to work. and send that money home and help their families. And they're not really thinking, they live day to day, they're survivors, and they don't plan for their future. They plan for today and tomorrow. And other than our program being aware of those things, we can only be as supportive as possible to them and keep the dialogue open, and reiterate the benefits of the program over and over and over. But these kids, I always tell Diego, he's like the most stubborn person I've ever met in my life. But they have their mind set on something. It's really hard to change that course. Very, very hard. Yeah, it's impossible. And the boy who took his own life in December, he's a kid. He was in our program for 6 years, and for 6 years, I can't tell you how shocked I was, because I had no idea. I had no idea he was so sad. And I don't think all of us were shocked. Sometimes you just don't know. You don't know. It's
Winnie, I just want to
failure.
check in, because you and I had spoken about concluding at around this point. I see that there's at least another question, and I guess there might be a few more. Do you have a few more moments, or do you need us to?
Sure, yes.
Okay, I'm going to turn to Susan Meyer. Yeah. Susan, great.
Hi, Winnie. Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you very
Hi.
much for coming today and sharing this information with us. And it's very important. I wanted to ask, you mentioned children that have relatives here in the US and they're likely to run away. I don't know how to phrase this, but can't those children be placed in foster care with their family? I mean, isn't there some method for letting them make that connection and, and supporting them in that connection? Can you speak, please?
When they're in the shelter, the first priority for the federal government is to place them with family. That's their goal. They're not able to do it many times because the families have to come forward, and the majority of the time they are undocumented themselves. So in the Trump administration, it could lead to their own deportation if they agree to sponsor. So the majority don't do it. And that's why, because they have no status themselves. Yes.
Thank you.
And thank you, Susan, for your support of our program and our kids.
Does anyone else have a question they'd like to ask? Winnie, yes, Rabbi Lerner.
So Winnie, isn't that the reason that they run away? Because the family can't come because they're afraid. So sometimes it sounds like the child who's picked up is actually being picked up in the middle of the night or in some way, because if they come in an official way, they're afraid. So they're being picked up in this unofficial way because this is the only way they feel they can do it safely.
Right. There is no trust. Yes, it is why. They don't trust anybody. They don't know anything, and they don't confide in anybody.
Do you feel that that's going to change now that there's a new opportunity?
I don't feel. I think it will always be this way for them. Yeah.
Right. It's a choice between the support they're getting with you and with being with their family. Are there other questions? I want to, Susan.
I just wanted to say that I can send out to the rapid response team the information about community connections. So
Okay.
if any of you, you know, have a special skill or have an inclination or a hobby that you might be able to offer some of the children, you'll know how to get to it. And the second thing that I'm feeling right now about how grateful I am personally to have born in a country where I can thrive. I worry about those kids that are picked up in the middle of the night, that they could be for some very, you know, harmful purposes like trafficking and things like that. I hadn't thought what Rabbi Lerner said, that maybe it was family picking them up, which was at least a little, put me at ease a little bit, but I was thinking that it could be for very nefarious purposes.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to say.
And sometimes when those kids go in, they do run and they run to family. It's often family that they've never actually met or that they don't really know. It's somebody that they know of more often than, and many times, even our kids who become URMs from being DUC, they will go and reunite with a family member and say, I'm reuniting because that's their choice, because they have some legal status or they're not deportable. And when they get to that home of the family member, the cousin, whoever it is, it's not a good situation for them. And they end up coming back. So they will leave and then they will say that the grass is greener with the family, and it's not, because they live in dangerous neighborhoods, in dangerous situations, and with many, many people in the same home that are not related. And there's an expectation that they will work and give some of their money to, you know, being able, it's just not, it's not good. And they do come back, and they have that option to come back, which is good.
So grateful that you were able to open your heart to us today, Winnie.
Susan, you are I love you. I love what a great advocate you are. When we send I love seeing your emails that say, we did something good today and can we help this person? And I'm so grateful, because I know that administratively it's a lot of work. It is. And I'm so thankful that you take it on and that you really lead the charge, because you do. And I thank you for that.
You've given me a chance to do what we call a mitzvah almost every day. So you've expanded my life. I've had a larger life because of you.
And likewise.
Winnie, thank you so much for coming to join us, for sharing your experience, what you've seen. And also, I think we've all just seen the depth of feeling of your relationship with these kids and how much it means to you to be involved in what sounds like often a very heartbreaking endeavor. And thank you for continuing to do that work and for helping us to be able to be involved in supporting that work and supporting these kids.
We're very grateful. Thank you so much. Thank you for this time today. And thank you all. It really was so nice to meet everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. And thank you,
Winnie.
all for staying.
Right.
Thank you.
So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.